Hello, welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Amy and this is Amy's Bookshelf. Today I want to talk to you about some translated fiction recommendations I have for you. Oh sorry, I'm shaking the camera with my foot. So if you follow me on Instagram, then you'll know that one thing I talk about fairly frequently is making sure I read as widely and diversely as I possibly can. That can mean a lot of different things, but one area of that I try and prioritise is making sure I read books that aren't just set in the UK and US, because unfortunately the publishing industry is very oversaturated with books that are set, well, English books for a start, that are set in the UK and US. So one way that I kind of check myself is not only reading books set in other countries, but also making sure I read translated fiction and non-fiction, that is. And that's basically just because we shouldn't not read authors just because they don't write their books in English. And obviously I can't speak other languages, I can only speak English. So if books have been translated into English and I have the opportunity to read them, then I do want to try and prioritise that. Now this isn't me saying that this is any kind of tick box exercise. You shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, the last 3 books I read, none of them were translated or none of them were set anywhere else. Like, don't panic. It's just, if you've read maybe 5 books and you realise, oh hang on, they were all set in America and they were all written by white cis male authors, then maybe just make sure the next one isn't. But read what you want to read. This is not me telling you to do anything, and it's certainly not me saying that you are wrong for doing anything either. But as I read a lot, I think it is important to make sure that I am reading diversely and widely, and in doing that I actually get the opportunity to read some really fantastic books, and some of my favourite books of all time are because I've made sure I'm doing that, which is great. So I will now get into the books that I have recommended for you today, and first up I have The Girl Who Reads on the Metro by Christine Ferret-Fleury. I think I'm saying Ferret wrong, I think it's like cafe. Ferret. Christine Ferret-Fleury. So this was actually, I read this literally last week. This is on my February TBR. This is set in France and translated from French, and it was stunning. Oh my gosh. So it's only like 197 pages. It's not very long at all. But if you enjoy books, if you like books at all, you will love this because it is literally just an ode to how incredible books are. The plot is basically a girl who reads on the metro. She gets the metro to work every day, and when she does that she kind of watches other people, and she's fascinated about what they're reading and just their lives, and notices when they're not there one day, and wonders where they've gone. And basically a turn of events happens that means she ends up quitting her job and working for a guy who owns a lot of books, pretty much, and he hires people to become, what's the word, passeurs, I think it is, passeurs, and basically it's a book matchmaker. So you find a person in need of a book and you match them to one that you think will fill a certain hole in their life. And yeah, so like I said, it's just an ode to books. There are so many stunning passages in it. I'm just going to read you one because honestly, it's actually, I don't annotate books that much, so when I do, I know I really, really love it. So this quote is from page 175, not spoilers though, don't worry. That in books you found betrayal, solitude, murder, madness, rage, everything that could grab you by the throat and ruin your life, not to mention others' lives, and that sometimes crying over printed pages could save a person's life. That finding your soulmate in the middle of an African novel or a Korean tale helped you realise the extent to which human beings suffer from the same ills, the extent to which we are all alike, and that it's perhaps possible to talk to one another, to smile, caress one another, exchange signs of recognition, any signs, to try and harm others less from the day-to-day. I mean, isn't that just beautiful? Not only is that like beautiful from someone who loves books, but it's, I'm obsessed with how as human beings we feel pain, we feel emotion, we are connected to each other, and yet we all seem to hate each other, and just, the pains and woes that it means to be human. And this is, I could just scream for how much I loved it. So yeah, that is my first recommendation. And yeah, if you don't take any others away, this would definitely be one that I really, really urge you to read, because I can't stop thinking about it. Next up we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Now this is set in Japan, and you might have heard of it because it's very popular, and it also has a sequel. which is also called Before the Coffee Gets Cold, but it's got the little added tales from the cafe. Now, this one was one of my book club reads last year, and because it was my book club read, when we were discussing it, I found out that this was actually a play, and so the reason it's got 2 books is because it's basically Act 1 and Act 2 of this play, which is really fascinating because I don't think I've ever really read, like, obviously I've read plays, but I don't think read a play that's been turned into a novel, because this isn't written like a play, it is written in prose like a novel. So yeah, that's really interesting. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't actually rate this very highly. When I first read it, I rated it, I think, 3 stars. It's probably more like 3.5, but I didn't love it. I loved the idea of it, and I think that it was executed relatively well, but overall I just couldn't really connect to any of the characters much, and I think I wanted more. I wanted it to go somewhere that it just never quite went. However, the reason I am recommending it to you is that I did like it as a concept, and so many people adore this book, and I think there were so many clever layers to it, and to be perfectly honest, even though I rated it 3 stars, I still read the sequel, so it can't be that bad. I still went out and bought that because I wanted to know what happened next. So yeah, that is why it's on this list of recommendations. So it's kind of a contemporary but with a sci-fi twist. Now, if you don't like sci-fi, don't panic. It's not some big space opera. It is basically this cafe where people can go and they can time travel, but it has a lot of rules, and this is one of the reasons, and when I discussed this with my book club, a lot of them said the same, but this is one of the reasons I didn't love the book, because it was like, oh, time travel, that's so fun, but it comes with all the rules, and it kind of made it a bit boring. But it was a really interesting concept, and obviously time travel is one of those concepts that if you don't do it well, it's just a myriad of plot holes. So you need to do it right, and actually maybe adding the rules meant that it didn't have the plot holes, so understandable. But yeah, some of the rules include that you can't leave your seat once you time travel to the place that you need to go. You have to come back before your coffee gets cold, hence the name, and you can only travel once. So yeah, it's a very constricted way to time travel, but what was really fascinating is the people who chose to do it. Mainly they were people affected by grief, and people that wanted to go back in time to speak one last time to their loved ones, which is really truly beautiful. And like I said, I really did love this book, even though I didn't love it. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, if you do like the sound of that, then get yourself a copy and then get yourself a copy of the sequel. Next we have Kim Jong Bon 1982 by Cho Nam-ju, and this is set in South Korea. This was this was also a book club pick. Oh, this is just a massive plug for my book club, isn't it? But we read this for my book club last year as well, and this was just a mic drop of a book. So the whole thing was pretty brooding and frustrating, and especially if you're a woman reading this, it's about one woman's life and how her whole life she has just been punched down by the patriarchy and made to live her life a certain way because she's a woman. So yeah, it felt particularly frustrating, and especially the last sentence of the book is just like a sucker punch to the heart. But I couldn't stop thinking about it for ages afterwards, and I just thought it was fascinating and awful, and kind of made me hate the world, but evoked a lot of emotions that I thought it should be celebrated for how triumphant it was in doing that. So yeah, I would really recommend that one, but I won't promise that it won't make you angry. And finally, we have The Ardent Swarm by Yaman Manai. This is set in a North African village called Nawa, and it is translated from French. So I actually read this as an ebook first off. It's, if any of you are Prime members, you can get this thing called First Reads on Amazon, and it basically means you get a free ebook at the beginning of every month, and sometimes you get to read it before it's published, which was the case for this, which was really cool. So this was published, I think, in 2017 originally, in French, but then it wasn't translated to English and published until 2021, and in actual fact it's still pretty hard to get hold of. So if you are looking for a copy of this, I wouldn't recommend going to Waterstones or a bookshop to ask for it. I mean, they can probably order it in for you, but it won't probably be on the shelf, because there just doesn't seem to be that many copies floating around. So you're probably better off looking online, or like I said, just going to the desk and asking them. I'm speaking from experience when I did this, because I loved the ebook so much when I read it that I obviously went and got a physical copy, and it genuinely took me about 6 months to find one. And in the end I ordered it online, I think from Waterstones, or bookshop.uk. I could have ordered it on Amazon. I didn't want to. I don't like giving Amazon my money for books if I can help it. So yeah, that was just a little interlude. And yeah, it basically follows the story of a beekeeper who wakes up one day to find that his beehives have been devastated by a swarm of hornets, and he has to leave his village in order to find out where the hornets have come from and how or why they have threatened his living, essentially. But what's really interesting is that it's about beekeeping, and it's entirely not about beekeeping. It's a parable and an allegory, and it's very clear throughout the book that the author is trying very hard to teach morals and basically communicate a sense of understanding to the reader in what he's trying to teach. And the reason I'm saying that is when this beekeeper chooses to leave the village, he basically he leaves his little utopian beekeeping world to find the world outside to be pretty dark and horrible. And there's people he encounters that are hell-bent on violence, that want to destroy the world, and it just uncovers this underbelly of nastiness that he wasn't initially exposed to when he was just in his village living and beekeeping every day. So yeah, it's a really interesting book because it's so layered, and it has so much to offer and so much to teach. And I just, when I was reading it, I found myself often lost for words at how beautiful but also awful a lot of the book was. So it's definitely one of those books that has both ends of the spectrum, and I wouldn't say it shocked me, but it did yeah, make me think. Like I said, it's kind of hard to get a copy of this book, but if you can, I really would recommend it because it was fantastic, and like I said, one of my favourite books of all time now. So yeah, that concludes my little recommendation list for you. Obviously you don't have to read any of those, but if you take away anything from this video, please let it be that you will try and go out and read more translated fiction, or at least more fiction that are set in countries that maybe you've never read or visited before. Reading is such a great way to understand other people and to understand different cultures, different countries, and just get a little insight into worlds that we might not have been partial to beforehand. And that's why reading's great, and I think everybody has a bit of a responsibility to make sure that they are reading in order to do that. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel and please like this video. And if you do really like this video, I'm happy to do more. I have plenty of translated recommendations, so let me know and I will do another one if that is what you want. And if not, I will see you next time. Bye!